Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Matthew Vandeputte. That was a bad one. Let's try that again. Hello, my name is Matthew Vandeputte. I'm a time-lapse photographer living in London. Hello, my name is Matthew Vandeputte. I'm a time-lapse photographer living in London. And this channel is all about time-lapse, travel, and tutorials. Today we're talking about photography filters. Do you need filters for your time-lapse shots? Let's find out. Years ago, I made a vlog in which I compared cheap versus expensive ND filters. That video blew up beyond my wildest belief, sadly, because I was vlogging and I thought I was making a shitty vlog. And people didn't like my vlogging style, which is fair enough, but I got a lot of hate for it. And I wish just, one day a video for which I really tried would blow up instead. Doesn't matter, I've moved on, I haven't really, but let's talk about filters for time-lapse photography now, shall we? There's two types of filters I use. There's circular polarizers, which I'm gonna mess up that word by the way, because I'm ESL and English is not my first language. Circular polarizers, which help with contrast and saturation and cutting through haze and removing reflections from your shot and makes everything look really cool. And then there's neutral density or ND filters, and they exist to extend your shutter speed, to drag the shutter as we call it. This helps when creating cinematic motion blur, cinematic, B-roll, whatever. Let's talk about ND filters first. There's a classic rule in filmmaking called the 180-degree rule. There's actually two rules with that one name, but the one I'm talking about is where your shutter speed is half your frame rate. Your shutter speed is double your frame rate. This gives you the nicest, most smoothest, most cinematic motion blur when shooting images in which there are moving elements. Shooting at 25 frames per second results in an ideal shutter speed of 1/50th of a second per frame. Now, when shooting time lapses, we're not shooting multiple frames per second, we're shooting multiple seconds per frame. Just to confuse you there, it doesn't really matter. All you're trying to achieve really is halving or doubling that value. So a 1 second interval results in an ideal shutter speed of half a second per frame. Shooting at 2-second intervals is 1 second of exposure per frame. Now here's the thing. If you're shooting in broad daylight, that's an issue. At night, it's fine because it's dark and you can extend your shutter to let in the low amount of light that there is. But if you're shooting in the daytime, it's so bright, you cannot extend your shutter or everything will be blown out. And that is why you use neutral density or ND filters. Here's a shot with a fast shutter speed in the middle of the day, which, as you can see, every frame is like frozen in time. It's a distinct look that works for quite a few subjects and some people really like it. But here's the same shot with an ND filter in front where I drag the shutter and it just feels and looks a little bit nicer, a little bit more cinematic, doesn't it? So that is why you use ND filters. Now let's move on to circular polarizers. I really like shooting with circular polarizers. Every time I'm out, I slap one on the front of my camera or my lens and I just take in how much nicer everything looks. Here's an example from a couple of weeks ago when I was out vlogging with Joe Allen, pointing at the shard, just literally twisting the front of this filter, and you can see the effect. The sky becomes much more contrasty. You can separate your subjects from the sky, depending on the cloud, depending on the time of day and your orientation of the sun, etc. It just makes things pop. Now, you want to use an ND filter and you want to use a circular polarizer at the same time. Do you need to get two filters? No, not necessarily. You have filters that are ND and CP or CPL or PL filters in one. This is one of them. This is sent to me by Polar Pro. Polar Pro is a California-based brand. If you watch my channel or you watch people like Peter McKinnon or whatever, I'm sure that you've heard of Polar Pro. But yeah, this is the filter I use most. This is an ND64 PL filter, meaning it is ND filter that drops 6 stops worth of light, and it is also a polarizer at the same time. Now, this is not the only kind of filter that you can put in front of your lens. This is one that you literally just screw into the front, and depending on the size of the filter and the size of the lens, you might need a step down or a step up filter. I recommend getting just a big one if you have the budget for it, and then using step down filters if that is what you need for different lenses. Then there are systems like this. I think this is their Basecamp system, which is a bit more heavy duty and it makes you look more like a boss because it's just a bigger system, but it uses these square frame filters that you drop in at the top. I'll put some footage on the screen that shows you how this works, but pretty much this is just more like an advanced version of any filters, and it gives you a little bit more control and possibly quality as well when out shooting in the field. So ND64PL, what does that mean? You go from 1 second to half a second to quarter of a second to an eighth of a second to a 16th to a 32nd to 64th of a second. So that's the gear I use that's been sent to me by Polar Pro over the years. To answer my question from the start of this video, do you need filters to make good time lapses? I think it helps, but you don't have to. Time-lapse photography is photography, which is art, which is subjective. So literally, just do what you want. All the gear I use is listed down below through affiliate links. You can help this channel and you can help me by clicking on those links and buying stuff. You can also check out my ebooks about time-lapse photography, and my latest ebook, Passive Income for Creatives, teaches you how to make money with your job. With your hobby. That's more applicable. You can also check out my Patreon for exclusive Patreon-only content, and to top it all off at the end here, I did a podcast last time I was in California with the guys from Polar Pro. It's called the Golden Hour Podcast. It's hosted by Dave Meggs, and we just had a fun chat. I've listed it down below. If you want to go have a listen, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, drop them in the comments down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Come on, man. I make all this free content for you. Please support the channel. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully see you on the next video. Salut.